Welcome to the Career Q Snap.
So welcome back, Chris.
Yep.
Our listeners are becoming quite familiar with your voice, and I love it. So let's just ride right in, shall we?
Sure.
Pun intended. You've presented this bike analogy or metaphor, and I'm actually not going to spoil it for our listeners. I just want you to run with this one. Why don't you take the wheel?
We'll sort of explore it together.
Yeah.
The basic idea is I've always been fascinated with bicycles as a machine, as a system, as a sort of fully functional system. And as I sort of struggle to understand my role and how to do my job in the sort of the big, complex thing called a for-profit enterprise, right? I tried to understand how people organize to get stuff done. And I came to the conclusion that there were really the two basic activities that the organization was involved in. And I sort of translate everything down to sort of my personal perspective to keep it sort of simple, right? And very connected to sort of who I am. So I think about the two basic activities that I'm engaged in waking hours is planning to do something or I'm doing something. Right? And there's really nothing else,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
It's planning to do stuff or doing stuff.
Yep.
And years ago, these two ideas sort of merged, and I began to see planning and doing in a bicycle, right? In the bicycle metaphor, because a bicycle really does two things, right? You can steer it, right? And wiggle the wheel back and forth with the handlebars, and you can also pedal it and make it go forward. And for me, the steering was clearly planning, right? Making choices about your direction,
Yep.
right? And where you wanted the system to go. Pedaling was a different activity, right? It required different muscles. It requires a different set of sort of skills. But once you do it, you start moving forward, right? So you can have one without the other, right? You can sit on your bicycle and wiggle the steering wheel back and forth, and it just looks sort of foolish, right? You can also try pedaling, and let's imagine a bike that's been rusty and the steering wheel is fixed in a straight direction. So you could literally ride it for straight until you hit something, right? So that's an example of the doing function, right, without any kind of control, right? And we know that that's a disaster, right? There's all kinds of doing organizations that just do stuff,
Right?
right?
With
very little steering, right? So anyway, so the more I thought about this idea of planning and doing being a metaphor for a bicycle, it became sort of more and more entrenched in sort of how I thought about the world. Now, as I apply it to the sort of community that I work in today, I see the rider in this particular case is the community that I serve, building houses for Habitat, building affordable housing. The community collectively is riding the bike and making the choices about where the bike has to go. The community is also pedaling, right? I'm not pedaling, right at the community level. I don't have sort of the time, resources, energy to pedal.
Yep.
So where do I fit in this? Well, I've just recently in the last few months of trying to resolve this, right? So the community is the rider. They're doing the steering function and the pedaling function. Who am I? I'm the frame. Right. I'm the framework that gives them some kind of rational structure to steer, right? And provide the framework. So, okay, you want to volunteer, you want to help us pedal? Okay, now I can help you understand that, right? The pedal and the mechanism for changing the speeds, and that's in the frame. So for me, it's become sort of natural. And I don't know if it's the kind of thing I'm always cautious about. You find a good idea and it starts really becoming almost embedded in your personality. And it's like, part of me is a little resistant. Am I totally buying this, right? And is it valuable? But at the end of the day, yes, right. This idea of these two functions is completely baked into sort of, and it's how I journal. It's how I think about what I'm going to do tomorrow, and it's planning, right? And I'm really good at planning. I've realized this. I love the steering. The pedaling is harder. Right? And so I'm conscious of that. And so as I go through the day, I look for people who love to pedal.
Yeah.
Because they're the energy. And maybe they don't like making the choices between left or right. that's fine. I love doing that, right? And a confident in that. But no, they'll pedal, right? That's the collaboration of taking care of both of those things.
Well, so from an individual perspective, there are times in our lives when we have to be the person steering and the person pedaling, right?
Yes,
just in our own personal lives.
For me, it's a scalable idea, right? And it's important that it has that characteristic. It's just as valid for me at an individual level as it is to X infinite number.
Yep. From an organizational perspective, whether it's a manager looking at their team and understanding who is best at steering versus pedaling, and or if you've got a team full of people that just want to steer, that perhaps you're probably not going to get to that destination.
You won't.
Yeah.
No, you won't. Everybody's got to steer, and everybody's got to pedal.
Yeah. But if you've got a bunch of peddlers, then you're just going to run into something.
Correct. Right. Is it, which is more important?
Yeah.
Well, both
equally.
of them are.
Yeah.
You can't separate the one. It's, right. And again, there is a book about how the mind works. And I can't remember. We'll have to go back and dig that up.
Yeah.
But he made the point in talking about language that all words are based on a fundamental object. And all experiences and ideas ultimately sort of boil down to a practical thing that we could all experience. And in thinking about that idea, for me, making this connection between planning and doing and the bicycle and the functions of a bicycle, for me, met that criteria, right? I was able to take this really very complex sort of concepts and ideas. And now, okay, you talk about it in the sense of a bicycle is almost a universal experience. So now being able to connect this theory with some kind of practical thing. Now the story becomes a few sentences and people sort of get it and be able to understand. They then start seeing meaning and build meaning on top of it.
Yeah.
So that's cool, right? But I think that the fundamental distinction, if we were talking about planning and doing without the bicycle, would be sunk.
Right.
Right. It would be too confusing.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. So everyone, as they're listening today, whether it be on their way to work, in a car, or on a bicycle, will be able to, I believe that most people, like you said, universally, it is something that they recognize and that is, they can tie a memory back to. And to be able to take it back to those core fundamentals, perhaps will actually make life simpler and easier. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, again, I love these conversations, Chris. We're going to get you back in the studio as soon as we can. Stay tuned for more episodes from Chris Anderson. Check us out on thecareerq.com. And I'm looking forward to the next one, Chris.
Enjoying this very much.
Yeah, that's awesome. And we will catch you guys next time on The Career Q.
That was a Career Q snack. And for more information about our topics, go to thecareerq.com.